Hi, my name's Edward C. Dorsey, Esquire. This message is for the Greek mob and the Italian mafia, who, according to Bobby Luisi in his YouTube channel, the Greek mob pays tribute to in Greater Boston. You know, Bobby Luisi, that guy on YouTube who says he was a made man, and he did time in federal prison for organized crime activities in Greater Boston for the Italian mafia, also known as La Cosa Nostra, right? See, folks in the Greek mob, including the operator of the Volkswagen SUV with the mass registration plate 934K that screamed at me in traffic in September of 2024 and harassed me in traffic in an uncalled for road rage incident. Yeah, this message is for the Greek mob. Dionysios Tembelopoulos and Elias Tembelopoulos. See, I went to law school in New York City, and I lived in the greater New York City area in the late 80s and the early 90s. Actually, almost the entire 80s and almost the entire 90s. Mob activities, organized crime activities are supposed to be what are called occult or covert. They're supposed to be hidden. Now, John Gotti learned this lesson, the boss of the Gambino crime family, who had Big Paul Castellano gunned down in spectacular fashion outside a steakhouse in New York City. John Gotti learned the lesson why mob activities should be occult or covert. Big Paul Castellano kept things quiet. This is the Gambino crime family. And under John Gotti, who took over for the Gambino crime family in spectacular fashion in the 80s, he worked out of the Raven Eye Social Club and Ozone Park, where he lived. Ozone Park, I think it was Ozone Park. Yeah, I think Ozone Park is in Queens. Anyways, it might be in Brooklyn, but I think it's in Queens. Anyways, John Gotti was an arrogant, showy man who was occasionally on the local nightly news for the Tri-State area as the leader of the Gambino crime family. He would be seen coming and going from his residence and various other places in very expensive Italian suits. Unlike Big Paul Castellano, who kept things quiet. And they called him the Dapper Don in the newspapers, and they called him the Teflon Don eventually when he beat a few charges in federal court. And eventually, John Gotti ended up in Leavenworth Federal Prison, where he died of cancer. Now, the reason John Gotti ended up in Leavenworth Federal Prison was because he was too showy. He made things too public. He made things too obvious. And that was the lesson on the difference between Big Paul Castellano and John Gotti to the American public with reference to organized crime activities. When things get too public, law enforcement is forced to act, and bad things happen to mobsters. Specifically, they end up in federal prison. Now, what's going on with my father, Thomas Anthony Dorsey, the theft of his estate, the theft of my inheritance, and all the things that have been going on with my life in the last 10 years, the ruination of my life, the destruction of my life over the last 10 to 15 years, and the theft of my inheritance, it was all very hidden up until recently. Until the summer or late April of 2025. Now, this is not what has occurred in my life and with the Tembelopoulos family, who are obviously Greek mobsters, is not at the same level as the Gambino crime family. This is a very minor incident compared to that. But the operating principle of things must not be too public applies, Greek mob. What has happened? Let's see. That has been too public or too obvious. Someone killed one of my cats with poison as a result of a break-in on or about February 20, 2025. But the cats didn't find the poison in the house. This is the house, this dilapidated house. The first cat that died didn't find the poison until the end of April 2025. I came out the next morning. I stood on that porch there. Sonia Kiriakou Galapos Tambelopoulos, was walking her dog right there, and by means of a raised voice and rhetorical questions, I accused her of being a Greek mobster, involved in the murder of my father, poisoning my cats, and being involved in restaurants. She went back into that house. She had a conversation with her husband, Elias Tambelopoulos, in full view of that window right there at the right side of the front door. And he came out into the street, stood right there. I was standing on the porch there, and he swore at me. He denied nothing. And he swore at me and told me to go back inside the house. Then the Newton police arrived. I informed them that there was probable cause flying around all this street relative to the Greek mob. And that as an attorney, it was my opinion there was probable cause to believe a lot of things were going on the street with respect to the Greek mob. And they drove away, and the Newton police did nothing. So we have the poisoning of, and then a couple weeks later, my other cat died from poisoning. She found somewhere in the house. So we've got theft of an inheritance, which I can go over the facts of at another time. My father's will, in my opinion, as an attorney, is obviously fraudulent. We've got someone killed my cats. After the morning after one of the cats died, these people called the police on me when I accused them of being Greek mobsters. The Newton police do nothing about it. The brakes on that car aren't working right. The brakes on this car are not functioning correctly. And recently, I found that I got out some old suits I had that I could use to get an office job, which would be well-paying. And someone had sprayed a chemical agent on the crotch of all but one of the suits, such that it is destroyed. The suits are destroyed. I can't use them. And it's $5,000 worth of suits that are up I can't use. And I'm destitute as a result of the theft of my inheritance and being abandoned by my mother and sister. So, Greek mob. Here's the point. Not in chronological order. Not in chronological order. We've got brakes not working on the car correctly. We've got 2 dead cats as a result of poisoning, as a result of a break-in. Right? It just took a long time for the cats to find the poison in the house. We've got, damage to suits, so I can't get proper work that will pay enough money, even though I have a college degree and a law degree. And we've got these people in response to an accusation of being Greek mobsters, among other things. They deny nothing, they swear at you in the street, and they call the police on you. This is called, in my opinion, as an attorney, it is absolutely obvious that these people are Greek mobsters. I mean, absolutely obvious. Completely obvious. Now, this is not the same problem exactly the same sort of problem that John Gotti had that landed him in federal prison. In other words, it's the difference between, if you want to talk in terms of military weapons, it's the difference between a 1,000-pound bomb and a large firecracker, right? The problem going on here with the Greek mob is not as large a problem as the Gambino crime family in New York City, okay? This is a minor problem, but it's still a problem. Hi, how you doing? You understand me? So this is a minor problem overall in law enforcement. I believe my father was murdered. My life has been destroyed. So for me personally, it's a big problem. So Greek mob, you have a problem. It is absolutely obvious that you are Greek mobsters, and it's absolutely obvious to me who the Greek mobsters are. That means there is a very high chance that someone is going to prison, state or federal, in the near future, the next 3 to 5 years. You have a problem. Now, in order to get the best outcomes for your members, you have to leave me alone and stop committing crimes against me and thinking you're getting away with it. Because you see, for the past 10 years, I didn't know who was doing this to me. I didn't know what was going on. It was a very confusing situation. But since the morning these idiots called the police on me without denying anything in response to an accusation of being Greek mobsters and killing my cats and killing my dad, everything is falling apart. Organized crime activities only work when the victim doesn't, this kind of scam, theft of inheritance scam, it only works when the victim doesn't know what's going on. They are unaware that it is a organized crime group targeting them for their very large inheritance. Once the victim in this sort of scam knows that they're the target of organized crime for a very large inheritance, it's over. It's sort of like a spy network getting exposed. Once the target of the hidden or occult criminal operation is aware of what's going on, everything falls apart. Because the only protection for the criminal conspirators in this matter from being prosecuted publicly is secrecy. And it has to be secret that they are organized criminals trying to steal the target's inheritance. I'm the target. Since the target, that's me, figured out that it's an organized crime group targeting my inheritance with false documents and lies and fraud and other crimes, someone killed my cats, someone damaged the brakes on my car such that the car that it's not terribly safe to operate the automobile, and I found out that someone damaged my suits so that I can't get a high-paying office job so I can hire a lawyer to sue these people in civil court. And it turns out the Newton police are corrupt. At least 20% of them won't do their jobs because they're somehow compromised by the Greek mob. Almost certainly, I know how it's done. It's the Newtonville Massage Therapy, the house of prostitution. The Greek mob is running a protection racket on the prostitutes at the Newtonville Massage Therapy. Standing right there. See where that Camry is? When that Camry wasn't parked there, I was conversing with a Newton police officer who at the time was threatening me with a psych hold. He was threatening me with kidnapping under cover of a psych hold. They were threatening me with a psych hold, but the threat was, we're going to kidnap you if you don't shut up. We were talking about Newtonville Massage Therapy and how I know it's a house of prostitution. And standing right there, he said to me, he didn't specifically admit to getting massages at Newtonville Massage Therapy, but we were talking about Newtonville Massage Therapy, and he said, oh yeah, it's okay to get massages. He goes, I get massages, I have a bad back. Now in that context, a Newton policeman admitted to me that he was getting massages at Newtonville Massage Therapy, which to me, as a former assistant district attorney who used to work on search warrants for the police, one of which was for the Newton police on a house of prostitution, for the search of a house of prostitution, that's an admission. Newton police are using Newtonville Massage Therapy, and Newtonville Massage Therapy is obviously to me a house of prostitution. So here's the point, Greek mob. Go over all the facts I've recited here. It is obvious, and I do mean obvious, what's going on here. And once things become obvious what's going on with an organized crime group, people end up in federal or state prison for a very long time. And murdering me isn't going to solve your problem. It's going to make it worse. So Greek mob, I know you're monitoring. I know there's a very high statistical chance that you are monitoring my social media. So I'm going to post this on social media. And you may not know this, Greek mob, but my entire life since I graduated from law school, my mother, father, and sister have relied on my judgment, good judgment, and my advice. My father always used to say about me, Edward, you have excellent judgment. Now, turns out my mother and sister are con artists, and they've hidden that from me successfully for most of my life. So there was a lot of stuff going on in the background my sister and mother couldn't ask me about. But the things they could ask me about, things that my mother and sister could talk to me about, and my father could talk to me about, they followed my advice, always. Because I have, as my father said all the time, Edward, you have excellent judgment. So Greek mob, you got a problem. See, there's one of their associates. There's a Greek mob associate right now. Anyways, he's Jewish. They have a lot of Jewish associates in Newton. So, Greek mob, I think you should follow my advice. Be safe.